Greetings, fellow Packers, Filipinos against corruption and kleptocracy. Did you know that corruptors, embezzlers, thieves, and kleptocrats have already figured out ways to evade most of the Philippines' corruption laws? What if I told you that we could turn the tables on these individuals and win the fight against corruption in the Philippines? Today marks the beginning of our journey to explore some exciting and radical ideas that could profoundly change the culture of corruption in our beloved country. The goal of this journey is to discover innovative strategies to eradicate corruption in the Philippines. While it may sound impossible, it can be done. The power to initiate change is already in our hands. Let's explore this power together. The masked face of corruption. The masked face you see now symbolizes the expression we wear when corruption is discussed in our country. We have rarely participated in meaningful conversations about this issue, and we often feel faceless and nameless amidst our suffering. The mask also represents silence. The only voice we have speaks of pain and agony as victims of corruption. As Filipinos, we believe we live in a democracy, part of an institution that should protect us. But let's examine the current state of the Philippine government more closely. What is the true nature of our system? To facilitate this understanding, we must explore the concept of kleptocracy and assess whether we truly live in a democracy or a kleptocracy. Kleptocracy is defined as a form of government in which corrupt leaders use their political power to expropriate or steal the wealth of the people and the land they govern, embezzling or misappropriating government funds at the expense of the broader population. In kleptocracies, corrupt politicians enrich themselves secretly, operating outside the rule of law through kickbacks, bribes, or by reallocating government funds for personal gain. Given this definition, I invite you to reflect on whether the Philippines genuinely operates as a democracy or a kleptocracy. Assessing our reality. I believe that the Philippines has indeed devolved into a form of kleptocracy. The realities of our governance align closely with its characteristics. While corruption is pervasive in the Philippines, we cannot dismiss the existence of incorruptible officials who genuinely wish to serve the people. There are more of these officials than you might expect. Tune in to the news, and you will frequently encounter stories of powerful individuals, particularly within the government, being investigated for various forms of corruption. Law enforcement agencies, such as the local police and military, as well as institutions like the Bureau of Customs and the Bureau of Internal Revenue, are under scrutiny, demonstrating the widespread nature of corruption. Regrettably, many of us have surrendered to this corruption, accepting it as a part of life in the Philippines. Over time, we have normalized corruption and become numb to its impacts. This must change. Taking action. Fellow Packers, let's discuss actionable ideas we can pursue as citizens to combat corruption, ideas that we can control and potentially shape into law. By maintaining this control, we significantly enhance our chances of reducing corruption. The focus must be on peaceful strategies, and I want to stress the importance of peaceful protests in our fight. For too long, we have relied on government officials to address corruption, yet little has changed. Often, the corruption we encounter involves high-level elected or appointed officials, including well-known political figures or families we once believed to be incorruptible. Some of these individuals campaigned on anti-corruption platforms but ultimately succumbed to the very corruption they vowed to fight. We must ask ourselves, why are these officials unable to eradicate corruption? Many may talk about tackling the issue but fail to take meaningful action. The stark reality is that those with the power to change the system often stand to benefit from its existing structure. Once they enter the political arena, they may find ways to extract benefits from the corruption that surrounds them, whether directly or indirectly. Some newly elected politicians may initially demonstrate a desire to combat corruption, but they often resign themselves to the corrupt environment, overwhelmed by dishonest colleagues. They might also face attempts to undermine their integrity. When well-intentioned politicians concede, the dream of overcoming corruption slips further from reach. We must recognize that corruption is deeply woven into the fabric of our institutions. This has been the case for at least 450 years, dating back to the time of Spanish colonization. Because corruption is so firmly rooted in our national identity, any victory over it may result in a Pyrrhic victory, a win achieved at such a great cost that it feels more like a defeat. Such a victory could necessitate massive changes to our government structure, potentially dividing the nation. We could lose corrupt officials across all levels, including those in the armed forces. The cost of eradicating corruption entirely could be significant, leading many to recognize the potential negative ramifications for the country and causing them to give up hope. Once again, corruption becomes normalized and accepted in our society. Hope and action. However, there is hope. We, the citizens, are the most affected by corruption, and we can continue our fight against it. We cannot afford to surrender. Remember this: the voice of the people is the voice of God. We can initiate radical yet practical ideas to improve the situation regarding corruption in the Philippines, and we will do so peacefully. Our collective ideas can compel those in power, those responsible for amending existing corruption laws or enacting new ones, to take meaningful action. The current Philippine laws on corruption have proven ineffective, despite their number. New, radical laws must be enacted, dictated by the people rather than by lawmakers who are part of the kleptocracy and benefit from it. These new anti-corruption laws must reflect the will of the Filipino people. We must apply greater pressure on our lawmakers. By uniting our voices peacefully, we can effect change, and before we know it, corruption will become a relic of the past for Filipinos. Our whispers will grow into a resounding roar when we unite for our cause. I want to emphasize that there are still good politicians in the Philippines. We must remember this, as we will need the support and services of these honorable officials moving forward. And we know who these good politicians are. We already know where to find them. The path forward. In the upcoming episodes of KleptoStop.Philippines, we will present various innovative ideas for eradicating or defeating corruption. Many of these strategies have demonstrated effectiveness in other countries across Europe, Africa, and Asia. I assure you, these ideas are radical, intense, and yet practical in confronting corruption. They will be open for discussion among all of us. This is a call for civil discourse. If you are passionate about raising awareness regarding corruption in the Philippines, I encourage you to visit my YouTube channel, KleptoStop.Philippines, for more resources. Let's begin this journey together, committed to fighting corruption for a brighter future for our beloved nation. Be blessed.